Thanks, Chris, for coming on. You've got an amazing story, and we look forward to sharing that with the guys tonight.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So I guess on behalf of everyone here in Darwinning and Palmerston, welcome to 2022 Champion Blokes.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so just quickly tell us a little bit about your growing up, what it was like growing up for you, Chris.
Rightio. I guess from what I can see here, most blokes on the screen, I would say, would be pretty close to Aussies. My dad arrived in the late 50s from Germany, and my mum arrived 53 from Holland. So basically, they were immigrants, and I'm the first offspring, Australian offspring, born in Brunswick in Melbourne. And I guess my childhood was different to most Aussies' childhood. I took different food to school. I'm basically a head and a half taller than all my age classmates. My mum has, in the Dutch King's Army, uncles that were over 7 foot tall. Due to the type of foods that we ate at home, I had, I guess, somewhat of a dairy intolerance, and so my nickname as a child was the bronchitis kid, because I was always sick with the flu. And the solution doctors had back then was bend over, penicillin injection in my backside, and so when my adult teeth came out, they came out brown. And so I've never had white teeth, and I'm just grateful I've still got teeth. But as a child going to school, it was a public primary school park. So I got bullied a lot at school. Most kids didn't understand me because I looked different, I sounded different, and I ate different food. So I was somewhat of an alien / foreigner / weird freak who basically did most things differently to other people. I already had hearing issues because I had a lot of abscesses and recurring things because of the foods that I ate, which no one knew back then. And so basically, I didn't fit in with what most other people knew as an Aussie. So the childhood was challenging. I was bullied often in primary school, and the same thing occurred in high school. And it was difficult, but by the same token...
How did you cope with that, Chris? How did you cope being bullying and and going home to a good family?
Yeah.
How did you cope?
So where we were was basically reminding me to look at the camera. And I guess because I'm recollecting stuff, I'm looking up, not looking at the camera. So excuse me, sorry about that, fellas. So how did I cope with it? Because I've got such severe hearing loss, I got between 3 and 5%. That's all I've got hearing. I live every single day as a non-audio person in an audio world. So how do I cope with not hearing most things most of the time is I'm very detailed with a lot of things. And so with regards to as a child, my way of coping was simply I read probably 3 books a day. So Enid Blyton, Famous Five, Secret Seven. My parents are very, 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 very strict. That's probably even a minor way of describing it. But there was lights out at, I think it was 6:30, 7 o'clock, just as it was starting to get dark. And because I started working when I was 7 years old, knocking on people's doors, having borrowed Dad's lawnmower because he was doing 2 or 3 jobs and wasn't home much, I would earn money by knocking on people's doors and then mowing their lawns, and they would give me 50 cents or whatever else. Now, back then in the late 60s, 1 cent in the tuck shop or the canteen at school got you 7 lollies. So 50 cents was a big deal. People thought I came from the richest family and we were the poorest family in Airport West because there was only one income. Mum couldn't work because of some experiences she had when she was working in the State Savings Bank, Commonwealth Bank in Melbourne.
And what was your relationship like with your parents, Chris?
Extremely strained because they went through World War II. My father in Germany lived on potato peels. Obviously, there was a world war going on and England was bombing Germany, and Dad was a burbs boy like me. I'm born in Brunswick in Melbourne and grew up in Airport West. He was born in Frankfurt am Main, which is the biggest city in Germany.
So, tell us about your relationship with your dad. He worked 3 jobs, so what was that like?
So basically, Dad would sometimes be not home for a year, or well, he not home. When we woke up, he'd already gone to work, and we went to sleep as kids, and he was still working. And when he did come home, we were all asleep, and so there was maybe a year or 2 where we, as children, we didn't see him. I'm the eldest of 5 kids, as myself, 3 sisters, and my brother on the end. So the connection
what was
between...
his advice to you? What was his advice to you as a man? As a man.
Yeah. So one particular night I asked him as a teenager, look, you know, primary school was hard. High school's getting really difficult. I've just turned 13 or something. And I basically asked him, what's it like to be a man? We were age. Dad happened to be home and he happened to be in his armchair. And I said, hey, Dad, things are getting hard at school, at high school. People are continuously making it difficult for me. How do I be a man? What's it mean to be a man? And Dad's answer, when he kicked back in the Jason rocker recliner, lazy boy, said, to be a man means men don't cry, men don't talk, men suck it up. And that basically was the only advice I got on how to be a bloke.
Which probably was common in those days.
I think, you know, having gone through World War II, and I think even still today, a lot of my tradie mates, to get any tradie mate to talk about anything other than screws, nuts, bolts, what size donk have you got in your car, and I'm not a mechanic and I'm not really that sort of a person. I've got a motorbike again but I'm not a mechanic, and so I don't really think in those terms. But with regards to talking about emotional stuff or stuff that's close to your heart, no, most blokes don't do that.
And so how'd you go? Like, you left home and you found the love of your life.
Yes.
How was that relationship, Chris?
Okay, so the mother of our 3 children, we're no longer married. We met, she was actually from overseas, India. She's what they call an Anglo-Indian or white Indian. And I had a lot of Indian friends in Melbourne that were Indian, as in various different shades of, from light brown to almost black, but no Anglo-Indian. And so I assumed they would have a similar sort of view on family and life and working and stuff, but no. So we met when she was here visiting on a visiting visa, but she never went back. We met, got married, and the first 3 years, I just put things, weird, strange things down to, well, that's just Jennifer. She grew up in India, but there was stuff that had happened to her in her childhood and her connection with her father after 13 years of not even knowing if she had a dad or who he was. And then when he turned up and stuff that he did, not healthy. So, but she didn't talk about any of that and didn't want to talk about any of that until we were actually married. And then slowly, by about year 3, year 4, some weird, strange stuff happened. And yeah, that was sort of the beginning of the end, really. 7 years later, that was it.
So you had 3 sons?
Yes, Nathan, Jaden and Rowan, now 25, 23 and 21.
Yeah. And so you came home from work one day and found a
Yeah,
note.
there was a special note on the table. I'm working 6 days a week, the only income, between 10, 12, 14-hour days. And when I get home from work, the note says something, I can't quote you exactly word for word because it's that long ago, and I sort of wiped a lot of that sort of stuff. Because something like this: hi, now that you're home reading this note, I've taken our 3 sons and I'm busy with a bloke down the road. Bye. And that was it.
And how did you cope with that, Chris? How did you get through? Like, for most guys, that would be...
Yeah, how did I cope? Right. As a non-Christian, it was extremely difficult. I had a lot of work friends, both male and female, ringing me up and saying, we're concerned about you. You sound like a weak thrashing machine. What can we do to help and make a difference? And I said, I don't think there's anything anyone can do. And there really wasn't.
What happened when you went and visited that pastor, Chris?
Yeah. So his name is Pastor Larry, and he'd had a church split, FGA, Full Gospel Australia, I think it was, Full Gospel, FGA, Full Gospel Australia. And he was their music director, music leader, and he's a very musical, talented bloke. And anyway, because things had suddenly got super, super difficult, I rang up Jennifer's auntie, who actually paid for her to come from India because of stuff that had gone on there. And so I rang and said, look, Auntie Nellie, there's a big problem. I don't know how to sort it. And all she said was, Uncle Larry is opening up a new church in Narre Warren, which is a southern suburb of Melbourne. And you need to speak with him. And I said, but hang on, he's the bloke who wouldn't even marry us. And she said, no, you need to speak to him. Goodbye. And I sort of went, rightio. I made the phone call and he said, look, oh yeah, I remember you. Did you end up buying that Bible? I said, well, Larry, I bought the Bible. He said, where is it? I said, in a box somewhere in the garage, I guess. I don't know. He said, rightio, well, you need to come over for a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. And turned up. I didn't find the Bible. I didn't know where it was. Anyway, so he's sort of rushing around being a pastor of a new church and doing stuff. And upstairs was his office. He said, look, this is my wife, Krista. I said, g'day, Pecklin. I mean, Krista. She said, oh, look, I'll make you a cup of coffee. Yeah. And I'm making some Malaysian dish. I said, okay, cool. And I said, hang on. In our spare room here, we've got a video machine, a TV. I'll just put on a video while she's cooking and making a cup of tea. I just got to nick upstairs, make a quick pastor's phone call, and I'll come back. And I'm thinking, geez, she's invited me now. I've driven all this way. I've come here, and now I'm sitting in a room by myself with a video. Well, just happens to be Bishop T.D. Jakes. I don't know if you fellas know Bishop T.D. Jakes, but he is a loud, large American, Afro-American pastor. Anyway, he's actually got this video of this time where he went into the hardest criminals prison in America. And you can see on the camera, they're panning across. They show Bishop T.D. Jakes. He's talking about something, and then they pan across, and you can see these fellows. These were hardened, the worst of the worst. And if they could somehow have gotten past the security guards, I reckon they would have ripped his fingers, arms, and then just eaten his flesh raw. They were that aggro and angry. You just see, because I use my eyes as my ears and my eyes, just see they were just so, they had to be there. The security guards had made them be there, and they didn't want to be there, and they didn't want this black African American talking to them. They were just angry. And so I'm thinking, this is not going to go good at all. Why has he put this thing on for me to watch? The next thing, whatever Bishop T.D. Jakes said, I don't remember. I can't even tell you. All I know is that the cameras panned across to him, panned across to these blokes, and these blokes are like 5-year-olds howling, snot, tears, and he's gone, security guards, get out of the way. Anyone wants to follow Jesus, come to the stage right now. And I'm thinking, whoa, yeah, I want to become a Christian too. And then Larry runs down and says, you were right. And I said, yeah, but I just want to become a Christian like these other blokes in this prison. And he's gone, right, boom, bang, pray for me, and boof, goosebumps, and woo, yeah. And then he says something which, well, I guess easy. 2020 vision is easy in hindsight. Well, God's going to fix your marriage. God's going to give you this incredible, well-paying job. God's going to do this, and God's going to do it. And I went, right, that's what I signed up for. Thanks very much. Only problem is that God didn't say any of that in his word. He said, it's going to be tough out there, but guess what? I'm always going to be with you, no matter what happens. So I sort of had this slightly twisted welcome into the family scenario. Not long afterwards, I started going to church quite regularly. I got involved with kids' church for 3.5 years, which was super duper fun. And the mother of our 3 children, Jennifer, she decides after church week 3 or church week 4, something somehow that she had said had got through back because it was Uncle Larry, and something he said to someone got back to India, somehow got to Auntie Nellie and got to her, and she just said, you can jam it up your jumper jack, you can take the 3 boys, I'm never going again. And that was it. She never ever went to church again. She came from a Catholic background in India, but that was it. Never ever to go to church again. In the meantime, Larry could see that I'm there by myself with our 3 sons. She's not coming. Guy Sebastian is one of his family members, decides to enter for the first time, the very first time, Australian Idol, and he had a big afro, and he's on, and Larry's coming over on Sunday deciding to do marriage counselling, and nothing good came out of that. And in hindsight, again, probably too close to home, being a relative of the person that you're trying to counsel. So there are a few mistakes made there, and well, that's just life. And at the end of it all, really, I'm so grateful that I got put in that position to have to make a decision, because it's the best thing I've ever done.
Yeah. And so then you got divorced?
Yep.
And how much you seen the boys since then?
About 15 or 16 years ago was the last phone call. And prior to that, I was still living in Melbourne, but I was driving from Croydon, Mirrabah, Seville East, over to Cranbourne or over to Narre Warren. And every time I get there, an hour and a half later or hour and 3/4 later, depending on the traffic, they've just gone to their mate's place. So, yeah, then a couple of phone calls later, I just said, that's it, I've had enough. And I mailed my house key to a friend who had a lot of connections with the Salvos, with St Vinny's, with Teen Challenge over in country Victoria. Yeah, Mark knew a lot of people in the helping other people community services area. And so I rang him and said, mate, I'm in the bus, I'm on my way to Tullamarine. He goes, what? He said, I know there's been a lot of stuff going on. I said, that's it. I'm starting afresh. Everything is yours, or whatever you want to do, give it all away. I don't care. Car, motorbike, all the tools, everything in the garage, all the furniture, everything gone by. He said, what are you going to do? I said, well, I've got 2 Woolworths bag of clothes, and I'm heading over to Uncle Tom. He lives in, well, he's no longer with us, but he lived at that point in Southport. He owned the Southport Caravan Park. And so I'm going to go and visit him. I haven't seen him for 15, 20 years. And then who knows, I might be in America. And that's what happened.
You end up in Darwin.
Well, I spent a year in Brisbane. I did a 6-month contract with Harvey Norman, a 6-month contract with 40 Winks. And someone said, you ought to meet this lady, Mari Licciardo. Maybe you guys in Queensland might know her. She's got an incredible prophetic gift. And she only had church on a Saturday because there were no community rooms or halls available. And so it took a number of Saturdays to finally find the right Saturday, and then she was there. So I'm thinking, well, I don't know about this all really. Anyway, I waited till the end and I thought, well, I'll just sneak in now. And she's praying over me and I'm thinking, Indigenous ministry in the middle of nowhere, Darwin, Northern Territory, what? I'm a bird's boy. I just thought, I'm a bird boy from Melbourne. You've got the wrong person. That's it. Anyway, well, long story short, someone said, you remember the time you went to Croydon and you met this fellow, Roger Latham? And I said, yeah, I played some clapsticks with a few of those fellows he brought. And I'm a percussionist for about the last 50-something odd years. Anyway, they said, well, you want to ring him and maybe see if he can go for a holiday for a couple of weeks in Darwin. Well, and 15 years later, I'm now talking with Paul McLaughlin and Simon Wallace and you all on Champion Blokes.
Good on you, Chris. So what's the future look for? Well, what gets you out of the bed each day?
Yep.
What's the future look like for Chris Loew?
Okay, so basically, I guess the essence of the story is out of a really incredible big mess comes a wonderful message, and out of extreme test come a testimony. So all I can say is that God has never, ever, ever, despite me running away, despite me turning my back and saying it's all too hard, I don't know if I want to be signed in for this Christian thing anymore. I stopped going to church for a period of time. Nothing made sense. But at the end of the day, God has never, ever, ever let things get so difficult that I decided it's all too hard, I'm going to give up. And when that first happened with the divorce, the amount of times I heard, you need to commit suicide, you're worthless, there's nothing for you, you can't even talk to your sons. It was just horrific. But you think, well, from that to today, where I connect with a lot of communities, I've lived in Darwin, Nhulunbuy, Katherine, Tennant Creek, and a short time in Alice Springs, and just simply talking simple stuff about life and connecting with men. I've run a lot of men's meetings in Hungry Jack's, McDonald's, cafes, restaurants, parks, and allowing a safe space, organising before anyone starts doing anything, a covenant for a men's Bible study, a men's meeting, and the stuff that's come out of that in Melbourne, in Brisbane, in Darwin, in Tennant Creek, wherever I've been, doesn't have to be anywhere fancy, a pizza, and let's meet at the local park, and this is the time, bring your Bibles, bring your phone with a Bible on it, and the stuff that comes out of it is just absolutely amazing. And we're talking about stuff that blokes don't normally ever talk about. And the moment you say, listen, these are the rules for being here. If you can't do that, there's the front door, or there's the way to go out, because if you stay, then the moment we finish, when you stand up or when you go to leave, when you leave that front door, you cannot remember a damn thing, because if anything ever comes back and I hear it, that's it. You'll never ever be invited again, and it will be very difficult for you. So they understand that caveat and covenant. And after eating something, big breakfast at Fresh Cuisine in Hibiscus Shopping Centre, or wherever we are at a cafe, we have something to eat, some coffee, a quick Bible study with usually Joshua 1:1, which is encouraging men to be strong and courageous. And then people just start talking, and blokes start talking, and it's phenomenal, the stuff that comes out. It doesn't come out of normal conversation. It doesn't come out when you're digging in the garden with a bloke or working on a car motor. But when you've got a safe, organised place where they feel they can actually trust people, it's stuff that comes out is amazing.
Mm.
And all the glory goes to God. It's not about me. It's not about my handyman gardening business I've had to recently start because the COVID thing, you've got to have 2 jabs, and I'm totally against the 2 jabs. So I started my own handyman garden. It's not about me, my business. It's not about my family. It's not about my sons. It's not about the house, the car, the motorbike. It's nothing about that. It's just simply, you got Jesus, you've got the answer. And it doesn't matter what you walk through, he will have the best plans in mind, and you can't see what you're walking through. It's just crazy. How can this possibly happen? And then you go 5 years later, if I'd have known at the time, it would have been a totally different attitude. But you have to walk through that to get there. I mean, Jesus spent 40 days fasting and praying in a desert, and the Israelites spent 40 years going around in circles, watching their clothes grow. God's fed them manna and quails and whatever else, and all they did was grumble and complain. So the thing is, just go through it, trust him, look at him, and don't worry about what you're going through, because at the end of it all, there's going to be an amazing message, an amazing testimony out of the mess and out of the test.
Very good. Thanks very much, Chris. You're a
Thank
champion
you.
son of the King, mate, and really enjoyed your sharing. Very passionate. Yeah, thank you. And it's amazing what God's done in your life, from your childhood feeling completely useless and not many friends, to God using you to encourage many men. And I know he's got a lot of years ahead of you up there in Darwin, encouraging. And we need to pray for you that your family you are reunited with your sons too.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for the opportunity.